I'm standing in Raymore Park in Etobicoke, and behind me is a bridge abutment, but there's no bridge. What's up with that? This bridge was washed away by Hurricane Hazel. Now, as a rule, Toronto doesn't get hit by hurricanes. Hurricanes, like other tropical cyclones, rely on a large expanse of warm water to power them. Once they come ashore, they lose access to the water, and usually within a few hundred kilometers, they lose their tropical characteristics. Toronto is several hundred kilometers inland and over 1,000 kilometers from the points where these storms usually come ashore. As well, the prevailing wind here blows from the west, and as you can see in this map of the paths of all the tropical cyclones in the 2021 season, it tends to blow them east of Toronto. Now, let's go for a walk in the park. Here's Hazel's path. It came ashore on October 15, 1954, near the border between North and South Carolina, as a Category 4 hurricane. Back then, hurricane tracking was more primitive than it is today, so there is some doubt as to the storm's exact track and status. It had been expected that it would weaken rapidly, not only because it had left the waters that power it, but also because it would cross the Allegheny Mountains, and interaction with mountains interferes with a storm's circulation. However, Hazel merged with a cold front and continued with hurricane-force winds and heavy rain hitting Toronto the next day. Since Toronto doesn't get hit with hurricanes, we're not as prepared as places that do, and forecasters had expected the storm to do the same thing as the other storms in that map you saw, and turn east, missing Toronto. Hazel's rain was stronger in some places than others. Western parts of the region, like this, got some of the worst rain, with some areas getting over 200 millimeters. Unfortunately, the previous few weeks had also been rainy, so the ground was pretty much saturated with water already and really couldn't absorb any more. So just about all of Hazel's rain ran straight into creeks and rivers, raising the level in some of them by 6 to 8 meters. That's enough that the water was flowing over the top of many bridges. Behind me is the Lawrence Avenue Bridge over the Humber River. Its predecessor was one of many bridges that had to be replaced because they were either damaged or destroyed by Hazel's flooding. Now, let's head downstream to the area near that bridge abutment that we looked at earlier. This is the parking lot for Raymore Park. It's on the north end of what used to be a residential street called Gilhaven Avenue. Raymore Drive today ends back there at the entrance to the park, but it used to continue along here and behind the camera. On this map, I've roughly drawn in where the streets used to be. The camera is at the star, pointing roughly west. All the area back there is on the Humber River floodplain, and it flooded during Hurricane Hazel. I've roughly indicated the extent of the flooding on the map. And this was a very violent flood. It took out about 350 meters of Raymore Drive and 14 houses. Some of the houses had people in them at the time, and sadly, some of the bodies were never recovered. It's likely that they were swept several kilometers downstream and into Lake Ontario. Here's the view from the pedestrian bridge crossing the river immediately north of our last location. This bridge was built in 1995 to replace the one that was destroyed by Hazel. That chunk of concrete in the river is the other bridge abutment from the previous bridge, but it's not in its original location. The original bridge was a few meters upstream of this one, yet we're looking downstream. That's how powerful the floodwaters were. This area along the Humber River was hit very hard, but rivers and creeks all over southern Ontario flooded. We learned some lessons from Hazel. In its aftermath, the area that got flooded around here was expropriated and turned into Raymore Park. Several flood control structures such as channels, dams, and weirs were built throughout southern Ontario. We restricted building on floodplains, and were more careful when designing things that may be hit with floods. For instance, the bridge that carries the Toronto Subway's Line 4 Shepherd over the Don River is watertight and designed to withstand being completely submerged in raging floodwaters. That bridge appears in my video on Toronto subways. There's a magic link on the screen, and I'll put one in the description. And near this bridge is a sign which serves as a memorial to the 81 people killed and thousands more left homeless by Hurricane Hazel in Canada. I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please like and subscribe.